6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, this is 6 Minute English from BBC Learning English. I'm Neil.
And I'm Beth.
What's up, Beth? You look a little sad.
Well, recently I've been spending lots of time with my cat and houseplants, if you know what I mean. I'm feeling a bit lonely.
It might help to know that you're not the only one feeling lonely. Loneliness has been called the modern epidemic. Although millions of us live together in towns and cities, more and more people report feeling lonely and unconnected to those they live close to.
Loneliness can affect anyone. And while everyone's experience of loneliness is different, its effects can be serious. Research has shown that loneliness puts people at greater risk of many health issues, including dementia and heart disease.
So, how can loneliness be fixed? In this programme, we'll be hearing about one project in the Netherlands aiming to do just that. And, as usual, we'll be learning some useful new vocabulary as well. But first, I have a question for you, Beth. Here in the UK, an organisation called the Campaign to End Loneliness has been offering advice and support since 2011. So, according to the campaign, what proportion of British adults report feeling lonely at least some of the time? Is it A, 29%, B, 39%, or C, 49%?
I would guess it's 39%.
OK, Beth, I'll reveal the answer later in the programme. Feeling lonely is not necessarily the same as being alone. Some people can happily spend lots of time on their own, while others may be surrounded by people but still feel disconnected.
So what do we mean when we say we feel lonely? Here's Myra Anubi, presenter of BBC World Service programme People Fixing the World, explaining what loneliness means to her.
It's that feeling when you crave people's company and you find it hard to connect, or maybe you just feel left out with no one to turn to. Now, feeling lonely isn't just uncomfortable. When it's experienced over time, it's been associated with health issues like a higher risk of having depression, dementia, or even heart disease.
When we're lonely, we crave people's company. We want their company a lot.
We might also feel left out. Unhappy because we're not included in what others are doing. And maybe we have no one to turn to, no one we can go to and ask for support and help.
Someone who suffered all these feelings was Bep de Bruin. In 2013, Bep, aged 74, was found dead at her home in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. Her death wasn't suspicious, but it shocked the whole country because it turned out she'd been dead for 10 years. Bep had lost contact with her only child and kept to herself in her apartment. So when she died sometime in 2003, no one realised.
Bep's tragic story inspired a national campaign to combat loneliness, including one project called Oma's Soup, a kitchen bringing lonely elderly people together with school children and students to make soup. Oma means grandma in Dutch, and the project encourages young people to spend time with their grandparents' generation.
Here, Claire Bates, reporter for BBC World Service programme People Fixing the World, explains how the project got started.
Well, it's run by two young guys called Max Kranendijk and Martin Kanters. And now they were concerned their grandparents' generation were becoming isolated and lonely. And meanwhile, they had lots of student friends who had free time. So they thought, why not try to bring these two generations together through making soup?
Oma's Soup was started by Max and Martin, two local guys, or men. They wanted to involve their student friends because they had lots of free time when they do not have to work or study and can do what they want.
Max and Martin found the perfect way to help elderly people who felt lonely by bringing them together with students. If you bring someone together, you help people or groups to become friendly or to do something together, especially something they wouldn't usually do, like make soup.
Oma's Soup has been a big success and has spread to other cities across the Netherlands, including Rotterdam, the hometown of Bep de Bruin, making her tragic death the spark for something much more hopeful. I think it's time to reveal the answer to your question, Neil.
Right, I asked you what proportion of British adults report feeling lonely at least some of the time.
And I said it was 39%.
Which was the wrong answer, I'm afraid, Beth. Sadly, the correct answer's even higher. 49% of adults, that's around 26 million people in the UK, making it even more important to reach out and connect with others. OK, it's time to recap the vocabulary we've learned in this programme, starting with the verb crave, to have a strong wish or desire for something.
If you feel left out, you're unhappy because you've been excluded from something.
To turn to someone means to go to someone and ask them for help or support.
A guy is an informal way of saying a man.
Free time, also called leisure time, is time when you do not have to work or study and can do what you want.
And finally, the phrasal verb to bring someone together means to help people or groups become friendly or do something together, especially if they usually don't. Once again, our 6 minutes are up. But if you're feeling lonely, remember you're not alone. So reach out by joining us again next time here at 6 Minute English. Goodbye for now.
Bye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Neil.
And I'm Alice. Neil, what are you eating?
Peanuts.
Did you know that one of the producers here has an allergy to peanuts?
No, I didn't, but they're not in the studio with us, so it doesn't matter, does it?
It only takes a tiny piece of peanut to cause a big allergic reaction in some people. An allergy, by the way, is a condition that makes you feel ill after eating, touching or breathing in a particular substance.
And food allergies are the subject of today's show.
All right, put your peanuts down, Neil, and answer today's quiz question. What substance is used to treat a severe allergic reaction? Is it A, penicillin, B, adrenaline, or C, aspirin?
OK, well, I'm going to go for A, penicillin.
Well, we'll find out if that's the right answer later on. Now, let's listen to Dr. Marianne Williams talking about why being too clean may not be a good thing. She is a dietitian here in the UK.
For roughly the first month of life, the immune system is switched off in essence, and everything they get exposed to in that first month of life, dogs, cats, aunts, uncles, grannies, grandpas, family, dirt, everything, that is where they build up all the bacteria that are then going to colonise their gut in the future. Now, if you're born into a very sterile environment, as is increasingly the case in the Western world, everything's kept terribly clean. And one of the theories is that we just are not getting enough exposure to a variety of bacteria at that very, very early stage in that first month of life.
Dr. Marianne Williams. The immune system is our body's defence against infection, and it's switched off or not working for the first month of a baby's life.
And through exposure to lots of things in our environment, that's family, pets, dirt and so on, young babies meet different bacteria for the first time which colonise or live and grow in their guts.
Yes, but in a sterile environment, babies don't get exposed to or don't meet a wide enough variety of bacteria. Sterile means completely clean and free of bacteria. And there's a theory that being too clean and bacteria-free, now we have soap, antibiotics and better sanitation, has led to an increase in allergies.
So dirty play for babies is good. Mud, pets, picking stuff up off the floor and eating it.
Did you used to eat food off the floor when you were little, Neil?
Used to. I still do. I enjoy food from the floor.
Well, Neil, what can I say? We're both lucky to be allergy-free. I have a friend who has an allergy to gluten, a protein found in wheat and some other grains, and she has to be very careful about what she eats so she doesn't get ill.
The supermarkets are quite helpful though, aren't they? With products free from this and free from that.
This is helpful, yes, but the food industry is now marketing their products to attract consumers who don't have a proven or tested allergy.
Why would you buy free from foods if you don't have a food allergy?
Well, people have started to believe that certain foods, like gluten or dairy, are bad for us, though there isn't any medical evidence to support this. Let's hear about how rickets, a disease caused by a lack of vitamin D in the diet, is affecting some children in the UK. This is BBC reporter Mike Williams.
Rickets is common in the developing world, but this is London in the 21st century. These children aren't malnourished because they're too poor to eat well. It's the opposite. Their often middle-class parents are spending money to give them foods with ingredients taken out. It's as if some of us have become unnecessarily frightened of our food.
Rickets usually affects malnourished children from poor countries, children who don't have enough to eat, and it makes their bones weak. But here in London, some parents are buying their children expensive free-from foods, for example, to avoid dairy, and are sometimes making them very ill.
It sounds crazy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's nuts. Get it? Nuts?
Very good.
Yes, nuts. That means crazy. Now, I think it's time for the answer to today's quiz question.
Okay then. So, earlier in the show, I asked, what substance is used to treat a severe allergic reaction? Is it A, penicillin, B, adrenaline, or C, aspirin?
I said A, penicillin.
And you were wrong, Neil. The correct answer is B, adrenaline. An injection of adrenaline can be used to treat anaphylaxis, or severe allergic reactions to insect stings, foods, drugs, and other allergens. Antibiotics such as penicillin treat bacterial infections, and aspirin is a painkiller you might take for a headache.
Okay, can you tell us the words we heard today again, please, Alice?
Sure, they are allergy, immune system, switched off, colonize, get exposed to, sterile, gluten, proven, rickets, malnourished, nuts, anaphylaxis.
Well, that's the end of today's 6-Minute English. Don't be afraid to join us again soon.
You know where to find us, don't you? Go to bbclearningenglish.com, where you'll find grammar points, vocabulary, and more editions of 6-Minute English. Bye.
Goodbye.
6-Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, this is 6-Minute English from BBC Learning English. I'm Phil.
And I'm Georgie. Has this ever happened to you? You eat a donut and get a sugar rush, a strong feeling of excitement and energy, only to collapse an hour later with a headache?
Food affects us more than we realise, and that's because what we eat alters our brain chemistry, changing our mood and emotions. Our brain is working 24 hours a day, even while we sleep, so it needs more fuel than other body parts.
So, can we eat our way to feeling happy? In this programme, we'll be discussing the relationship between food and the brain, and, as usual, we'll be learning some useful new vocabulary as well.
Sounds great, Georgie, but first, I have a question for you. Humans with an average brain weighing 1.5 kilos are one of the cleverest animals. But which mammal has the biggest brain? Is it A, an African elephant, B, a dolphin, or C, a sperm whale?
I think it's an African elephant.
Okay, Georgie, I'll reveal the answer later in the programme. Now, did you know that despite making up only 2% of our total weight, our brain uses 20% of the body's energy? Nutritionist Dr. Rita Achari does. She thinks we should be specifically eating for our brains, as she explained to BBC World Service programme The Food Chain.
Eating every day, right, and eating a balanced diet so you get the full complement of vitamins and minerals is critical. If you go low in something in one day, if you just, don't eat any protein for a day, or for me in my situation, if I don't eat any vegetables, I know the next day I'm not as sharp.
Number 1 on Dr. Achari's list of brain foods is a regular and balanced diet. A diet containing the proper types and amounts of food needed to stay healthy. Remember the rainbow rule: eat foods of many different colours with lots of leafy greens.
A balanced diet also includes different types of nutrients, vitamins, fibre, protein, and so on. But including these isn't always possible. You might go low on, meaning have very little of, one food type. Dr. Achari says that when this happens to her, she's not as sharp, as intelligent and quick to notice things as usual.
Dr. Achari names lots of different foods which help boost our brains, from wild-caught Alaskan salmon and avocado to berries and walnuts.
But hang on, Georgie. Wild-caught Alaskan salmon. Very nice and very expensive. It sounds like these superfoods are just for the super rich.
Well, not according to blogger Michelle Munt. Here she is telling BBC World Service's The Food Chain how eating well needn't cost a fortune.
It's not expensive, and everyone's got a freezer these days, so yes, you can batch cook things, freeze them, and then use them in like a week's time or something. So I think the problem is that, again, it's about our lifestyles. It's about the fact that we feel like we've got limited time, and therefore people are trying to cut the time down in the kitchen by cooking things that are pre-made, or even worse, we're just chucking it in the microwave. But actually, you can do fresh food in 20 minutes flat.
Michelle's idea for brain food on a budget involves batch cooking. Batch cooking means cooking a lot of food at one time, then saving some to eat later, usually by freezing it.
Although microwave-ready meals are convenient, they lack many nutrients needed by the brain. Luckily, adding some fresh vegetables to batch-cooked food means anyone can make a brain-healthy meal quickly, or in 20 minutes flat, as Michelle says, using the word flat to mean exactly and to emphasise that it can be done quickly.
Okay, so we need balanced diets and batch cooking for big brains. Now, let's test your brain, Georgie, with my question.
Right, you asked which mammal has the biggest brain, and I guessed it was an African elephant.
Which was the wrong answer, I'm afraid. In fact, the biggest brain belongs to the sperm whale, weighing about 8 kilos, and the sperm whale's main food? Fish.
Okay, let's recap the vocabulary we've learned in this programme, starting with sugar rush. Suddenly feeling excited and full of energy after eating food which contains a lot of sugar.
A balanced diet includes the correct combinations of food needed to stay healthy.
If you go low on something, you have very little of it.
If you describe someone as sharp, you mean they're intelligent and quick to react to things.
Batch cooking means cooking a lot of food at the same time and saving some for later.
And finally, doing something in 20 minutes flat means 20 minutes exactly, and is used to emphasise that it's done very quickly. Once again, our 6 minutes are up. Have fun cooking up your own brain-boosting breakfasts, and remember to join us again next time here at 6 Minute English. Goodbye for now.
Bye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, this is 6 Minute English from BBC Learning English. I'm Phil.
And I'm Georgie.
If you ask a woman, "Are you eating for two?" the phrase has a very specific meaning. You're asking, "Are you pregnant?" And like many of the idioms we commonly use in English, this phrase contains a little bit of truth. A pregnant woman really is eating for two, herself and the baby growing inside her.
The female human body is amazing. During pregnancy, it protects the growing baby by allowing it to take whatever nutrients it needs from the mother. This means it's the mum-to-be, not the baby, who experiences any nutritional problems. It's also the reason why it's so important that pregnant women eat well.
In this programme, we'll be finding out how a woman's relationship to food changes during pregnancy. And, as usual, we'll be learning some useful new vocabulary too.
But first, I have a question for you, Phil. For some pregnant women, finding reliable information on what food to eat can be hard. Finding out about harmful foods to avoid, on the other hand, is much easier. So, according to NHS recommendations, which of these foods should pregnant women not eat? Is it A, chips, B, oily fish, or C, smoked salmon?
I think the answer is C, smoked salmon.
OK, Phil, we'll find out the correct answer at the end of the programme. Although eating healthy and nutritious food is important for mums and babies, the story gets complicated because of the changes a woman's body goes through during pregnancy. Here's Jegga Wise, presenter of BBC Radio 4's The Food Programme, reporting on her experience of pregnancy.
I feel like throughout this pregnancy, my body's just gone a bit haywire, and there are things that my body is doing. That's frankly weird. Nosebleeds is a really good example. Yes. I can count the amount of nosebleeds pre-pregnancy I've had on one hand, and then now I seem to get them all the time. Yeah.
Jegga says that during pregnancy, her body went haywire. It stopped working properly. For example, she had lots of nosebleeds, whereas before being pregnant, she could count the number of nosebleeds she had on one hand. The idiom to count the number of something on one hand emphasises that this doesn't happen very often, or that there's a small number of something. After all, you can only count to 5 on one hand.
Many pregnant women experience cravings, the strong desire for some particular food, anything from ice cream to sardines. When these cravings are for food that's not so healthy, some women feel guilty, thinking, I know I should be eating healthily, but all I want is chips. Here's Jegga Wise again, speaking with nutritional therapist Henrietta Wilson on the best way to deal with guilty feelings.
How guilty should you feel? It's more the question. For that late night chocolate binge, when your body is telling you, I need cake.
Listen, I think the most important thing is to not get out the cat of nine tails, is to absolutely be kind to yourself. Particularly in that first trimester, it is a very critical window, but at the same time, it can be the time when all you want to do is to eat chips, because your body is going through what it perceives to be physiological stress. So it's doing the best that you can, and it's absolutely not about giving yourself a hard time.
Jegga's food cravings led to a chocolate binge. A binge is an occasion where you do something in an extreme way, like eating or drinking too much.
Henrietta's advice is to not use the cat o' nine tails. In the past, the cat o' nine tails was a whip made of 9 strings which was used to punish prisoners. Nowadays, when someone talks about the cat o' nine tails, they are probably talking about the ways people sometimes use to punish themselves if they feel guilty.
But, says Henrietta, pregnancy isn't about giving yourself a hard time, treating yourself badly, or criticising yourself. Pregnancy is a special time of life, and all a baby can ask is that mum does her best, and of course avoids some foods. Which reminds me of your question, Georgie. Which food does the NHS recommend pregnant women do not eat? I guessed it was smoked salmon.
Which was the correct answer. Smoked salmon is best avoided because of the risk of bacteria, but oily fish is good, and even a bowl of chips now and then are fine. Right, let's recap the vocabulary we've learned in the programme, starting with the idiom eating for two, which means to be pregnant.
If something goes haywire, it stops working properly or becomes difficult to control.
If you say you could count something on one hand, you're emphasising that something does not happen very often, or that there are only a few of those things.
A binge is an occasion when you do something to excess. For example, eat, drink, or spend money.
In the past, the cat o' nine tails was a whip used to punish prisoners, but nowadays it usually refers to the ways in which someone criticises themselves as a form of self-punishment.
And finally, to give yourself a hard time means to treat yourself badly by criticising or blaming yourself. Once again, our 6 minutes are up. Remember to join us again next time for more topical discussion and useful vocabulary here at 6 Minute English. Goodbye for now.
Bye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, this is 6 Minute English from BBC Learning English. I'm Neil.
And I'm Georgie. Do you know the 5 tastes which give food its flavour, Neil? There's sweet.
Yes, and sour, bitter.
And salty. Everyone knows that salt makes food taste better by enhancing the flavours of the ingredients. There's even a phrase you'll see in many recipes, add a pinch of salt.
But exactly how much salt makes a pinch of salt? The World Health Organization, or WHO, recommends a daily salt intake of less than 5 grams, about the same as a teaspoon. In fact, the human body needs salt, at least 1 gram a day, to survive. But most of us eat far too much, increasing the risk of high blood pressure and heart disease. In this program, we'll be asking how much salt is too much. And as usual, we'll be learning some useful new vocabulary as well.
Great! But first, I have a question for you, Neil. The reason it's difficult to know how much salt you consume is that it's hidden in food, especially processed food. So which of the following everyday foods do you think contains most salt? Is it A, meat, B, bread, or C, pasta?
Well, I'm going to guess that meat is the saltiest of those foods.
OK, Neil, I'll reveal the answer later in the programme. Marian Sambiva lives in Astana, the capital of Kazakhstan, a country where people eat on average 17 grams of salt a day. That's more than 3 times the amount recommended by the WHO. Here, Marianne explains some of the reasons behind this to BBC World Service programme The Food Chain.
We consume lots of salt, which is due to historical heritage, because when we were nomads, for centuries and centuries, we traveled and wandered across the steppes, and here we had to carry lots of meat, which could be preserved only adding salt. And even the milk products, the dairy products, are also very much salty for the same reasons.
Besides improving its flavour, salt can be used to preserve food, to stop it from going bad. Traditionally, people in Kazakhstan were nomads. They travelled from place to place with their animals rather than living in one place all the time. Treating food with salt gave them enough to eat during the long winter months. They even did it with dairy products, foods which are made from milk, such as cheese and butter.
So, salt has a long and useful history, but there's a big difference between traditional Kazakh nomads and the health problems associated with modern processed food. When we eat too much salt, the body dilutes it by retaining water. And as a result, the heart works harder to pump liquid around the body. This causes high blood pressure, which, over time, can lead to heart disease.
Globally, governments are fighting this health risk in different ways. The Australian government reduced its recommended salt intake to 6 grams a day, while the British government has passed laws forcing food companies to reduce the amount of salt they use, and now recommends just 5 grams of salt per day.
Claire Collins is Professor of Nutrition at the University of Newcastle in Australia. Here, she explains more about these salt recommendations to BBC World Service programme The Food Chain.
I think you just got to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Like arguing whether it should be 5 grams or 6 grams, the issue is that around the world, salt intakes are very high, contributing to high blood pressure, contributing to premature strokes, premature mortality, and we need to address it in a way that's culturally appropriate for each country.
Instead of arguing over grams of salt, Professor Collins thinks we should take a step back and look at the bigger picture. She uses 2 idioms: take a step back, which means to temporarily withdraw from a situation in order to think about it more calmly, and look at the bigger picture, to consider the overall meaning of something, not just the details.
Yes, the problem remains that overconsumption of salt is causing premature health problems, problems which are happening sooner than they should. By limiting salt and processed food, most people can enjoy long, healthy lives. And if you don't like your food unsalted, try adding herbs and spices instead.
Well, speaking of salty foods, I think it's time to reveal the answer to my question, Neil. If you remember, I asked you which everyday food contains most salt.
And I guessed it was meat.
Which was the correct answer. Meat contains the highest amount of salt, around 19%, followed by bread with 14% and pasta with 7%. OK, let's recap the vocabulary we've learned in this programme, starting with the verb to preserve food, meaning to do something to stop it rotting so it can be eaten later.
Nomads are people who travel from one place to another, often with animal livestock, rather than living in one place all the time.
Dairy products are foods such as cheese and butter, which are made from milk.
If you take a step back, you temporarily remove yourself from a situation in order to re-evaluate it.
The idiom to look at the bigger picture means to consider the overall meaning of something rather than the specific details.
And finally, the adjective premature describes something which happens too soon or before the proper time. Once again, our 6 minutes are up. Goodbye for now.
Bye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.